Hi, and welcome to another episode of Foxy Little Nuggets. 4 stories from the political nuthouse, and finally to remind us that not everything is bad. First up, Nigel Farage. We know yesterday he officially resigned as MP for Clacton, triggering a by-election that he says will be the people versus the establishment. The only slight problem is that the establishment has looked at the diary and said, nah, no thanks, we're washing our hair that day. Because the Labour Party, the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, the Greens and Restore Britain are all refusing to stand a candidate against him. They're calling it a circus. Which leaves Count Binface. Yes, Clacton now be treated to the grand democratic contest of Farage versus Binface. One man accused of political theatre and one man who was at least the decency to wear a bucket on his head. Rachel Reeves, who, oddly enough, has to approve Farage's resignation through one of those ancient, weird offices Westminster keeps, such arcane things for, said she would not stop him spending the summer arguing with a bin. And that, frankly, may be probably the most accurate description of modern British politics. Certainly the most sensible one ever offered by the Treasury. Secondly, PMQs today, held without Starmer. So ding PMQs. He was away at NATO, being laughed at. People talking to each other but not talking to him. He's a dead duck, isn't he? They're not going to have any discussions with him. He's pointless. Like a broken pencil. So Lammy stood in and was pressed hard by James Cleverly over the government's early release scheme for prisoners, including serious prisoners, serious offenders. Cleverly asked whether Lammy would apologise to victims. Lammy did not. Instead, he blamed the Tories. Now, blaming the last government, of course, is classic Westminster move, but there are moments when it lands badly. When the subject is, people who do terrible things to children, say, being released early, the previous lot were worse, is not exactly what victims are waiting to hear. It's the political equivalent of setting fire to the kitchen and pointing at the chef undercooked the chips. There was a lot of anger in the House over this. Thirdly, third news story, the IMF, we're going to talk about them. They say that UK inflation may return to the Bank of England's 2% target faster than expected, possibly by the middle of next year. Rachel Reeves, this shows the government's economic plan is working. It's not. It's showing that they've overtaxed so much that there's literally no money left in the economy and that nobody can afford anything. And so they're being forced to reduce prices in order to, sell anything. Only trouble is, a lot of these reduced prices will just be because companies are going bust. The Conservatives say growth is still slowing, unemployment is rising, and Labour is out of its depth. All these things are true. Both things can, of course, be true. Inflation can come down. That does not mean anyone will feel rich. It just means prices will stop punching you in the face quite as quickly. Good news is the fire might be under control. The bad news, though, is that the economy is crashing and burning and jobs are going. So, inflation is not really the big problem of the moment. Growth and jobs truly are. Now, go up north of the border, going all the way up to Scotland. The SNP government, it wants a new mansion tax on homes worth more than $1 million. They say it's about fairness, but parties always say it's about fairness when they're talking about taxing people. Unfortunately, the message has collided head-on with facts that some MSPs, especially ones from far-flung constituencies, can claim taxpayer-funded second homes in Edinburgh, including the rent, council tax, utilities, broadband, and even removal costs paid for by the taxpayer. Is that about fairness as well? And then some MSPs' families use these homes during recess, including potentially the Edinburgh Fringe or Hogmanay. They can even rent them out on Airbnb. So homeowners are told to pay more because they are privileged. Meanwhile, politicians can claim back the cost of having a second base in the capital. Mansion tax for thee, and a cosy Edinburgh flat for thee. Deary me. Moving on, we've got an and finally, and it's a very odd and finally. We're going to talk about a posthumous conditional pardon for someone who was killed. We're talking about Ruth Ellis, the last woman who was hanged in Britain. Someone who should never have actually been hanged. Ellis was executed in 1955, and today David Lammy announced the pardon. Her case has long been seen as one of the great shadows hanging over British justice, over the entire justice system. By any standard, she should never have been hanged. Whatever else is going on, the by-elections, the tax rows, the prison rows, the endless leadership manoeuvring, this is a reminder that government can still do serious things. Not every announcement has to be a stunt. Not every policy has to arrive wearing a hard hat and standing next to a nervous junior minister. Sometimes things can just happen that are just nice. In the current political framework, that alone feels almost revolutionary. The fact that a state can admit that they got something wrong. Now, of course, it doesn't do any good for Ellis. She'd be long dead, so it won't change her outlook. But it does go to show that the state can admit sometimes that something's gone wrong, they've got it wrong, and they can somehow fix it. And that's it. That's today's foxy little nuggets. Farage versus Binface. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a win, isn't it? It's going to be such a cracking win. 80-90%, who knows? Lammy versus the prison crisis. Reeves versus, basic arithmetic, given her problems. And the SNP versus its own expenses system. But nice to see that Ruth Ellis finally receives a measure of justice. Sometimes the adults are in the room. Not very often. But it is occasional. But it is also nice to see that Starmer over there in the NATO meeting and nobody was talking to him. Because they all say, not you, mate. Not you. Pointless. What are you going to do? And nobody listens to him. Apparently now, even the civil servants aren't even going to Starmer. They're going straight to Burnham. They know where the real power base is. Cracking. There we go. Let me know what you think. Thanks very much. I will move on. Do hit subscribe. YouTube's still being a bit weird about these things, so do absolutely hit subscribe. And also remember that if the bill goes through, that they're trying to push the BBC's output on here, it will make finding the channels harder. So if you subscribe, you'll definitely get them. Cheers. Bye.